Unmasking the Legend of Ji Gong, The Life of Ji Gong. The legend of Ji Gong, the Mad Monk, is a vibrant tapestry woven with compassion, eccentricity, and divine intervention themes. Here's a glimpse into his story. Ji Gong was born Li Shu Yan in the southern Song and initially led a sheltered life under his noble parents. However, an auspicious occurrence at a temple marked him as a reincarnated arhat destined for a higher purpose. After losing his parents at 18, he became a monk at the famous Lingying Temple in Hangzhou, embracing the monastic life name under Dao Ji. Ji Gong's behavior deviated from traditional monastic rules. He often appeared disheveled, drank alcohol, and even ate meat, earning him the nickname the Mad Monk. He is also popularly called the Living Buddha Ji Gong or Zen Master Ji Gong. His real name was Li Shu Yan, alias Li Xing Yan, and he was born in the Tiantai district in Zhejiang during the Song dynasty. His father was Li Mao Chun, and his mother was Huang. The Li couple had no children and prayed a lot to the deities. One night, the wife dreamt of an arhat who gave her a 5-colored lotus flower. She took over the lotus flower and started eating it. Before long, she was conceived and later gave birth to a son. The time was the second day of the second lunar month in 1133. The couple was overjoyed and gave a feast on the full moon day of their son. Amongst the guests came a high-ranking monk who named the baby boy. It was said that the mission of Ji Gong to reincarnate in the mortal world was because the rock at the front of the Buddha's seat had secretly left for the mortal world and, therefore, created an offense of the heavy-only rule. Ji Gong was sent to the mortal world to take a reincarnation to search for the rock. When Ji Gong was in the mortal world, he went through a lot of hardship before finally accomplishing his mission. After his parents died, and after 3 years of mourning, he left for Westlake, Sihu, in Hangzhou and became a monk at the Lingying Temple. The abbot Yuan Sha Tang knew that he was an arhat in reincarnation to the mortal world who came to the mortal land for a merry time, so he accepted Ji Gong as his disciple and named him Dao Ji. When Ji Gong first arrived at Sihu as a young man with an unconventional demeanor, he was said to be responsible for managing the cooking fire at the Lingying Temple kitchen. He readily demonstrates his knowledge and wisdom, impressing some temple elders who recognize his potential beneath his unusual exterior. However, other monks remained skeptical and disapproving of his unconventional ways. Ji Gong was destined to follow his unique path to enlightenment. One day, the abbot's spiritual nature propels him on a lifelong quest for knowledge and provokes him, and he suddenly understands many things. Afraid of being found out by others, from then on, Ji Gong pretended to be insane and fooling around. Dao Ji never followed the precepts and always behaved frantically. He wandered around freely and liked to drink wine and eat meat. Due to his wine drinking and meat-eating habits and his unusual crazy behavior, many people thought Ji Gong was insane, so he was also nicknamed Crazy Monk. Ji Gong was generally disliked by other monks in the temple. When the abbot Yan Sha Tang passed away, monk Fa Hui became the new abbot. Sources suggest that Ji Gong's unorthodox methods and disregard for specific monastic rules sometimes clashed with Fa Hui's stricter interpretations. There has been friction between them, so, Ji Gong left the monastic because he was driven to pursue his practices and teachings without constraints. After leaving Lingying Temple, he joined Jingxi Temple at Ping Mountain. Jingxi Temple was known for welcoming eccentric monks and offered a less rigid environment than Lingying. It is an attractive option for Ji Gong, aligning with his personality and spiritual pursuits. Jingxi Temple presented a different atmosphere and aligned better with his approach to practice. Ji Gong's life at Jingxi Temple is filled with abnormality. He settled in an unusual demeanor and maintained his unusual ways. He later became the temple secretary, assisting with administrative tasks. After assisting with supervisory tasks in the Jingxi Temple, he managed to copy the sutra from the temple library and performed many miraculous acts there. When the main hall of Jingxi Temple burned down, Jingxi Temple faced financial difficulties. Ji Gong used uncommon methods to raise funds. Ji Gong performed numerous acts of kindness and miracles, helping the temple and people. His unconventional methods came into play. Ji Gong used uncommon methods to raise funds. He used supernatural means to gather timber and rebuild the hall quickly. He rescued villagers from floods, healed the sick, and even used magic to punish people with greed and corrupt officials. He was known for his crazy wisdom, appearing mad but ultimately revealing deeper truths through his actions. He is also linked to the expansion and garniture of the temple, with many areas attributed to his efforts to empower him to a diverse array of functions. Ji Gong always disguised himself to appear frantic in helping the mortals. Opposite the Lingying Temple, there was the Fei Lai Peak, and a cave could be found with stones known as the Ji Gong bed and Ji Gong table in it. It was said that Ji Gong always hid inside the cave and ate roasted dog meat. He would sleep on the stone bed when drunk. Holding a large palm leaf fan and behaving frantically were the unique features of Ji Gong. The big palm leaf fan appeared to have great magical power, which Ji Gong used. Ji Gong is well versed in his poetic verses, often subduing the strong, protecting the weak, and using his powers to help the less fortunate. Ji Gong was known for his compassion and generosity. Stories tell of him healing the sick, providing food and shelter, and intervening in unjust situations. Ji Gong passed away at Jingxi Temple, leaving a legend of inspiration. After his death, he was buried at the Deci Mountain in Hangzhou. His tomb is still a popular pilgrimage site today. Ji Gong was revered as a deity in Buddhist and Taoist traditions, highlighting his unique blend of spiritual teachings and folk beliefs. He remains a popular figure in Chinese culture, appearing in numerous stories, novels, and television shows. His image as the Mad Monk continues to inspire and entertain audiences across generations. He was loved and respected by the mortals. Due to his popularity, he has filled the scent of incense could fill 1,000 temples. The image of Ji Gong, frequently seen at the Arhat sanctum, is depicted uniquely in that he is not always depicted amongst the other Arhats but stands out independently. The worn-out robe he wore and the broken fan he carried, together with his appearance, were all very lively and interestingly depicted, which suggested Ji Gong's independent and unusual behavior. It is said that Ji Gong was a living Buddha in the moral world. Some said he was highly cultivated and had super divine powers. Ji Gong's unconventional behavior may seem strange but often serves a purpose. Ji Gong has been popular in Buddhism and Taoism, and because the country folks found that their prayers were frequently answered, his devotees are ever on the increase. Legend states that Ji Gong was a monk with no patience for injustice and extraordinary divine abilities. He challenged the ministers, punished the greed, and settled the injustice. His jocular behavior drew him closer to the people. Many episodes of Ji Gong helping people experiencing poverty were recorded in the legends of Ji Gong, which have been widely circulated. Some had asked Ji Gong why he was always behaving frantically, and Ji Gong replied, "Everybody is insane, and if I am sane alone, how do I help them?" He implies that everyone has their quirks, eccentricities, and ways of thinking that could be seen as insane from another perspective. This can be a more effective way to reach people than conforming to social norms and expectations. One day, Ji Gong was wandering when he came across a rich man who had just constructed his new house. The owner approached Ji Gong to say some auspicious words to bless the house. Ji Gong then said, "The house will encounter 1,000 deaths. The wives will die before their husbands, and the sons will die before their fathers." He left after saying those words. The owner of the new house was very displeased with what he had said. However, one senior craftsman explained the profound implications behind that and said that what Ji Gong had mentioned was encouraging and that Ji Gong meant that the new house could withstand 100 years, there would not be any windows in the house, and lives would multiply in continuity. The owner may have misunderstood Ji Gong's actual words or misinterpreted their symbolic meaning. Many stories about Ji Gong involve cryptic pronouncements with deeper meanings. The statement about 1,000 deaths could be a metaphor for overcoming obstacles, facing internal demons, or experiencing significant transformations within the house's occupants. Ji Gong wears a torn hat, craves meat, drinks alcohol, always helps the poor and needy, and is frantic and carefree. The image originated from the Dao Ji master during the Song dynasty and was used in most of Ji Gong's legends. However, why is it that Dao Ji is frantic in the eyes of all the monks, and why is he considered a living Buddha in the eyes of the country folks? The distinction between the two varies greatly, and what is the implication there? Since the Southern Song era, The legends of Ji Gong from the Tiantai of Zhejiang gradually spread all over the world and became well known. The legends were spread in many art forms, including dramas, plays, novels, paintings, sculptures, and television shows. Most episodes use the life of Ji Gong as the central theme, which includes the arhat taking a reincarnation, the jocular and frantic monk willing to use his supernatural powers to help others and fight against injustice, punishing the bad and glorifying the good, and so on. The reason for their popularity is the dramatic elements and their historical reality. Ji Gong is a person in reality during the Southern Song dynasty. The most reliable historical records of the Master Dao Ji can be found in the Legend of Dao Ji records by a monk named Shi Chuan Deng, who recorded that Dao Ji was from Tiantai of Zhejiang. He was a highly literate, frantic, benevolent, and generous monk who liked to help the poor and needy. He was also depicted as always wearing a torn robe and a broken hat and had a particular craving for meat and wine drinking. His standardized jocular and frantic image had since been established. Dao Ji, named Li Shu Yan, was the son of a man by the name of Li Mao Chun from the Yongning village of Tiantai. The Li are an affluent family in the village of Yongning and are well-to-do. Li Shu Yuan grew up in a family environment and received a good education. Under normal circumstances, Li Shu Yan would have pursued a royal official position at the imperial court subsequently. However, at the age of 18, his parents died, and Li decided to renounce everything and leave home to become a monk and take on the name Dao Ji. It was understandable why Li Shu Yan decided to become a monk. From the environment in which he was brought up, Buddhism had an intense religious characteristic in the surroundings. When Buddhism was introduced to China, it soon became one of the three faiths in China: Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism, and thus Buddhism became part of the Chinese culture. During the Sui Tang era, Buddhism was flourishing in China. The philanthropist Li Mao Chun's kind deeds must have established an affinity with divinity, which led the arhat to descend on the celestial dragon to become his son in reincarnation. The karmic law can explain this as cause and effect in the teachings of Buddhism. Since Li Shu Yan was an arhat taking a reincarnation, the eventuality of his renouncing everything to become a monk was natural. Though Li's arhat status is disputable, his legend endures, reflecting a belief of the society then. The expectation of society was focused on a specific person. This person must have certain qualities differing from that of an average person. Ji Gong renounced all his wealth to be a monk, leading others to associate him with the same footsteps of the Shakyamuni Buddha, who renounced the throne. Dao Ji was already fated as a monk when he was born. According to a script written by a high-ranking monk during the Ming dynasty, he said, Dao Ji became a monk at the age of 18 at the Lingying Temple. When he first became a monk, he was mistreated at the Lingying Temple. However, he had a craving for wine drinking and meat eating and behaved frantically. He liked to fool around and do somersaulting. When people talk about Ji Gong, they praise his generosity and jocular and frantic qualities. However, Ji Gong's frantic attitude was not his own choice. There was bitterness in how it came about. Those who knew of Dao Ji's background and his intention to become a monk knew he was considered a different species in the Sangha group. Most monks came from homes of poverty, but Dao Ji came from a wealthy one. Most were illiterate, but Ji Gong was highly literate. Many became monks because of food and clothing, but Ji Gong became a monk to shoulder greater responsibilities. Somehow, the highly literate Ji Gong, who possessed the good moral qualities of a bodhisattva, could not shelter himself inside the temple with other monks. Another story says a monk named Zhi Qing held the supervisor position at the Guoqing temple. When he saw Ji Gong was hard-working and studying hard on his scriptures and got good regards from the abbot, he was envious. He conjured an accusation against Ji Gong by stating that he became a monk to avoid marriage and was not ready to be a monk. He insisted Ji Gong crawl under a bench forth and back 6 times to change to a new life. The suggestion was strongly objected to by Ji Gong and stopped by the abbot. Due to the deep grudge established, Ji Gong had no intention of staying at the temple and started to wander all over. He wandered freely, living off the land and connecting with nature's rhythms. He got elbowed by others out of jealousy, and he was jealous of his capabilities. All these seem logical simulations. It significantly impacted Ji Gong, who had newly become a monk. His compassionate nature was shattered. He encountered the contradiction between his idealism and reality. His decision to leave must have been made after many deep thoughts and pain. Dao Ji was considered well-disciplined when he first entered the temple. Otherwise, he would not have been respected and subsequently attracted jealousy. When Dao Ji was at the temple initially, there was no engagement between wine and meat as they were part of the precepts that a monk had to observe. That might be the result of resentment by the other monks. When Dao Ji's illusion and idealism shattered, he resorted to drinking wine to reimburse for his anger and disappointment. Eating meat and drinking wine became a matter of course, and he was expelled from the temple. Dao Ji continued with his pretense of being frantic to avoid the other monks' suppression. He used his frantic attitude to display the spirit of the Mahayana way to save the world. The conclusion of Ji Gong. When Ji Gong was dying, he recited excellent verses that comprised his entire life. It goes like this: all the 60 years, I have been in a mess, roaming from the east to the west. Now that I have tidied up and returned, I continue to mix the water and the sky. He was abandoned by the other monks at the temple and became a wandering monk without a permanent home and a decent place to eat and rest. Despite that, he continued his life objective by helping others, performing benevolent deeds, and carrying himself as a genial monk. When Ji Gong was living, his image contrasted with his good acts and attracted much attention from others. This is the main reason why Ji Gong's legends are many and very popular. Thanks for joining me on this Unmasking the Legend of Ji Gong, the Life of Ji Gong exploration. Stay tuned for more captivating tales.